It was no surprise when Thunderbolts was released with a miserable opening weekend at the box office that you saw so many different media sites and Access Media members decide to defend this thing with their entire lives. They said, oh, it's so stunning and brave. It's incredible, despite the fact that it was one of the worst box office opening weekends we've seen in the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And although I did think Thunderbolts is a better movie than, say, The Marvels or Captain America Brave New World, I don't think it was a good movie, and it didn't have interesting characters that people would care about that would draw them to the box office. And overall, I said back then that we're going to go down the road, just like we do for every one of these Marvel movies, despite all these people praising it and saying it's amazing financially. 3 or 4 weeks down the road, we're going to go back and look at the box office, and it's going to be full of headlines that say things like, what happened to the Thunderbolts? Or Thunderbolts has unfortunate box office reality, something to that effect. And then when the box office receipts actually come in and they're lower than you would expect, what does the mainstream Access Media do? They tell you that it's fantastic. They tell you that it's amazing. Just like we saw a few months ago with Captain America Brave New World, with Black Captain America so stunning and brave, it blew up at the box office. Well, what are we seeing from Thunderbolts? Thunderbolts assembles a mighty start at the box office. Except it doesn't. All these people do is lie and cover for Marvel until a few weeks later when it's obvious that the thing's going to flop, when it's obvious it's not going to make money, and they change the headlines and they say, what happened with the Thunderbolts? What happened with Brave New World? And that's the reality when it comes to Thunderbolts. Where here we are, a couple weeks down the road. And wouldn't you know it, just like clockwork, it's almost like the people in the media think that we have the memories of goldfish, because this is the strategy for every fucking Marvel release. This Marvel movie is the best Marvel movie since the last Marvel movie. Don't listen to the haters. This is a great box office opening. And then when it all comes down to it, we understand the reality. Marvel's Thunderbolts heading for unwanted box office record despite rave reviews. The latest MCU film about a team of misfits was called Marvel's Best in Years. Yeah, almost like every one of these movies. The best Marvel movie since the last Marvel movie. Well, here we are for Thunderbolts, which is now sitting at $353 million at the box office. Unfortunately for them, with this many weeks of release, with the theaters it's losing, with now the competition, it has made the vast majority of its money already. And now it's on pace to make less money than Captain America Brave New World did, which was a flop, which was a financial failure, and which everybody said, oh, it's going to definitely do better than that. Not going to happen. In fact, odds are this movie doesn't even cross $400 million at the box office, which would make it probably the second biggest disaster we've seen from an MCU movie. Take a look at this. Thunderbolts crosses the $350 million mark at the global box office, but has legs terminated by competition and won't reach $400 million after grossing just $5.6 million on its fourth weekend overseas versus Captain America 4's $9.2 million on its fourth weekend. And that really is the problem. This movie has been tracking behind Captain America Brave New World since the start. Now, the first couple weeks, it did have a slightly better hold domestically, but it had a worse hold internationally. And it led a lot of people to speculate that it was going to make more. Well, here we are. This thing's probably not going to hit $400 million. With a $180 million production price tag, not including marketing, which is another $100 million on top of that, is now eyeing a $380 to $390 million global run. Other analysts put it right in that same spot. Despite Thunderbolt reviews are on fire, this fourth weekend is still below Captain America 4, and the finale seems to be around $385 million. Now, why is this a disaster? Why is this that fucking bad? Because if we go back, let's look at all of the MCU movies that have been released in history, all the way up here with the top grossing ones like Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, stuff like this. Let's scroll down. Let's scroll all the way down and see the worst performing ones. And you can see why not making $400 million will be a very big deal for Thunderbolts. Despite the media lying to you this entire time, and despite either retards that fall for it or access shows or whoever it is that tries to spin these box office numbers, this is the reality. The Marvels, the biggest bomb they've ever seen. The biggest bomb they've ever seen by a long shot. at $200 million worldwide. Incredible Hulk, released all the way back in 2008. By the way, if you take that $265 million number, the second MCU movie that was released, if you take that adjust for inflation, it's over $400 million, just for the record. Thunderbolts, 353. Now, there's a couple more in between that and 400 million. It probably will pass Captain America, the First Avenger, which was released 14 years ago, which if you adjust that number for inflation is way fucking higher than $400 million. Black Widow, $380 million. Now, that adjusted for inflation is probably in that $400 million range because that was only a few years ago. But also remember, Black Widow was released coming out of COVID, and it was released on Disney Plus on the same fucking day. In fact, it started a lawsuit between Scarlett Johansson and Disney. So you can kind of throw that one out. The next lowest that we've seen in history is Eternals at 400 million. Thunderbolts is going to be worse than that. Thunderbolts is going to be probably, when it's all said and done, right, the third or fourth lowest grossing movie in MCU history. And when you adjust for inflation, the second lowest. Ahead of only the Marvels. That's how big of a fucking flop Thunderbolts is. That's how bad it is. And that's why it's so ridiculous that these people in the media, these access shills, these fucking retards, wanted to try to convince everyone that it was just doing so great at the box office, guys. It's so amazing. Look at this. When you could see terrible numbers right in front of your very eyes. They wanted to lie to you. They wanted to convince everybody that everything was just going to be fine. Well, no. It flopped worse than Captain America: Brave New World. And once again, it lost money for Marvel. Doesn't matter if you rename it New Avengers. Doesn't matter if you keep the name Thunderbolts. People were not interested in seeing those characters on screen, and they've lost faith in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But hey, the cycle's about to start all over again with Fantastic Four this summer. Can't wait.